It is an old sweet song, isn't it?
It is. Where his voice, there are porn stars,
in his voice.
Oh, fuck you. This is Winging It, the somewhat whimsical, certainly worrying, decidedly wonky, seldom weighty, endlessly well-intentioned, and wildly witty show about music, where one knows what's coming and the other doesn't. And I'm the one in the know, and he's the one not in the know. And this happens in between both proper to ensure that you can spend anywhere from 15 minutes to God knows how long with us every week or really, really often. So, I kind of feel like this time of year, maybe you could guess what we're going to talk about, David, or at least the peeps might be able to.
Yeah, it's
that time.
We've touched upon this polarizing topic. Actually, it isn't really polarizing. Everyone pretty much admits it's bullshit. It's what I think it is, which is around this time of year we're talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Fuck, you totally just took the wind out of my sails. Yes.
Wait, didn't you ask me to guess?
Yeah, I did, but shit, I thought you might be wrong.
Oh, well,
you were fucking dead on balls accurate.
Considering my track record, it's actually very reasonable of you to think I would be wrong.
I was hoping, and it wasn't a reason. I just was hoping, but
the odds were in your favor.
Dead on balls accurate, as they say, because we were talking about the 2025 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame names.
Snicker.
These are the nominees, and let's talk a little bit about it. And we're, of course, going to give our opinions on it, and we have very strong opinions about this. And again, if it's called Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it should be rockers. It shouldn't be rappers, it shouldn't be R&B, it shouldn't be country, it should be rock and roll. Now, I know they lump everything in there, but it's super confusing to my brain. But let's talk about, aside from the fact that there should be different areas to celebrate different types of artists, let's throw that out. Let's talk about who we're nominating and whether or not they deserve to be in there over maybe somebody else who's not in there, or maybe over some of the other people that are nominated. Let's just get into it. I think we should just get into it. And this little chat that we're having is brought to us by loudwire.com. We really love them. So I'm going to go through the list, and I don't know what to say. Let's just find out. Any that come to mind for you, David, off the top of your head, that you think might be nominated this year, or you've heard might be nominated?
Well, I have actually seen the list. I've actually voted a time or two. I don't remember the entire list. Oh, that doesn't spoil it. Does it?
I mean, I don't know. So let's go to the first one then. Let's go to Billy Idol. So it says, here, Billy Idol. I mean, Billy Idol has a huge track record. A long, amazing career, lots of really cool hits. I mean, I have a lot to say. I mean, so they say of Billy Idol, the rebellious attitude of punk rock coupled with new wave touches at the time is what catapulted Billy Idol to superstardom. And when you think of rock star, obviously his name can never be far down on your mental list. And while I appreciate that, and that's true, and I think there's a lot of accomplishments that he's achieved, and I think he's added a lot to music, and I enjoy his music. I don't know. I'm gonna hold off on that one. So far it's gonna be I don't know, and by the time we get done, I will tell you definitively if I think he should be. And where are you?
Well, here's something you can answer a question if you know off the top of your head, because I have completely forgotten this about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, there are all these nominees. I don't remember how many. I don't remember the names except for the one I voted for. And another one that shouldn't be there. But we'll see. But what I don't know is how many, there's a nominated class of whatever. How many get inducted? Just the one or just two? Or how does it work? Just one out of all of them?
No, I mean, there can be several. I don't know how many. Let's actually look that up. I don't know
I was wondering, because it's like, can I vote for Billy Idol and somebody else if I happen to think? Because, I mean, this is a guy, while you're looking it up, a guy who's, early the punk crossover, I mean, Generation X, the punk crossover thing, and pop sensibilities and danceable, but definitely got the sneer and got the punk and got the guitars with Steve Stevens and the solo stuff, and great, fantastic. Now those are music videos I like. Some of those, like Dancing with Myself. I mean, that's just brilliant stuff. And I think it was being there at the early days of MTV. I think it was kind of culturally significant. His, keeping that attitude of punk into. I mean, people were listening to music that they never listened to before. Everybody was listening to all the same stuff, and they were being introduced to like the kind of Billy Idol music that they might not have been hearing in whatever setting they are. And I think he was important in that way, and I think maybe he should be inducted. Yeah.
So 5 to 7 acts are inducted. So right now there are, it looks like 13. So should he get it above some of the other people who otherwise wouldn't get it? So that's what we need to establish.
Yeah, well,
later.
so far I'm kind of voting in his favor, but
okay.
He might have to get bumped. Depends on he's the first one.
I mean,
we'll
that's
see.
why I'm reserving judgment. I'm saying I'm not sure because I think he was great. But if you think about culturally important, if we're going to go that way, all these people are culturally important. So,
that's true.
So it's like, I don't know. So I feel like it's almost like we're pitting them against each other, even if their genres don't match, even if, so it's kind of a tough one. The next one is Bad Company.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
So Bad Company, obviously an incredible band, amazing music, amazing vocalist, just amazing musicians in that. So in particular, it says that this would be a sweet nomination for frontman Paul Rodgers, who, as you know, my fave. I love that man's voice, who is one of the all-time great rock voices. He had time in Free, Bad Company, The Firm, and even Queen for a short period of time. If you remember that, ill-fated, if you ask me, was not a good idea. Adam Lambert,
they
much
even
better.
Put out a record. I know. Yeah.
But he's got the range, he's got the versatility. Isn't it about time? For me, it is absolutely time to put Bad Company in there. I feel like they are some of the bands like them that really kind of defined that sound of that time and helped inspire what we have now. It wasn't the same as what we'd heard. It was alluding to where we could go, and it really did open doors. And it's so incredibly listenable and so fun. Rockers, but you can also dance to them. You sing along to them. Amazing. And again, it's also upping the ante as far as, vocal performance. You can't just dial it in, Kiss. You have to actually sing, and you have to sing well. And so for me, it felt like this actually did that. And instead of just having acts who kind of, talk, sing, or whatever, this is like, he's a singer, and these are real musicians, and they should be celebrated. So, yeah, I did say Kiss in there because they can't sing. It's not.
I ignored it. Yeah.
No, you didn't. I saw you went, what the hell? But I'm just saying, I think Bad Company absolutely should be in there, and it's not just because I like them. I really am thinking about what they did for music and what they did to inspire future generations.
Well, I mean, their debut album, of course, they had been working on other things. I mean, Mick Ralphs was in Mount the Hoople, and we had Paul Rodgers in Free. They were working on other things. So I was 13 when Bad Company came out. They put out their first album and everything. So I can attest to the fact of just how energizing they were. I mean, 74 was one of the most amazing years ever for music, but they did something that was their own thing. And like I said, they could bring the rockers, real great, fun, dancey stuff, but also edgy ones. But they could also deliver some serious attitude, like the title song "Bad Company" and "Ready for Love" and stuff like that. I mean, you can buy that whole, gunslinger thing from Bad Company, and you could totally "Ready for Love." You believe it, and Seagull. I mean, the first album has just absolutely amazing tracks on it. And, of course, it wasn't long for the next one. It might have been the same year. I'm not sure. But, they're an incredible band, and I think they deserve it. And I would go as far as to say, and this has happened many times before, as a solo artist, the band gets inducted, so can the guy. And how many bands has he been in, for heaven's sakes? You named. There was another one, in addition to the ones you named, that, kind of gets forgotten, which is called The Law.
Apparently it should be forgotten.
Yeah, nobody thought much of it. But, I mean, a stint in Queen, which Paul Rodgers and Queen make it make sense.
No,
you know,
I never, it never
but
made sense.
that's not his fault. He's great at everything he does.
He's
everything
amazing.
else he did, he was fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think he deserves it as a solo artist too. And this is a guy who's not just a singer, not just a frontman. He's not Ozzy fucking Osbourne. No, I mean, I'm sorry, but this is a guy who writes songs entirely himself and plays guitar and keyboards, and he's a real he's a real
musician.
composer. Yeah, he's a musician and a composer. And so on so many levels, I think he and Bad Company deserve it.
Absolutely. So we'll see. Now, maybe we'll see if they get inched out. So far we have Billy Idol and Bad Company.
Yeah.
You said yes on Billy Idol already.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll get back to you.
I'll take them both until somebody's got to go. And then and of the two, I would side with Badco on.
All right. Me too. I'm with you. Next up, in no particular order, by the way, folks, is the Black Crowes.
Yeah. Okay.
I love the Black Crowes. I'm seeing the list here, and there are some incredible bands on this list. So I do think that they deserve it. Do I think they could wait another year? Probably, but I will say they brought a new soul to old classics and a new soul to rock music, and I love that. There's a nod to me, to my ear, to old R&B, to old soul.
I mean, yeah.
And I feel like as much as it is rock, and I just love what they did. They merged the two and made this really infectious sound. I mean, there's nothing quite like them out there, and even if there are people who sing with soul, it's not the same. There is just this, I always feel like, when I hear them, it feels like a merge of old and new, and it's perfect, and it's fresh, and it's vibrant, and it's infectious. And I feel like they continue to do things like that. And I always like it when I hear people perform with the full band and then strip down and do acoustic, and they're just amazing both ways. I do think they deserve it, but again, looking at the list, I would like to see them go in. Over somebody else, I don't know, but we'll keep going.
Yeah, well, the Black Crowes, of course, I remember quite well. You might, no, you're not that old. But when they came out, and it was like, and it kind of fired up. It was a number of times throughout history, bands have come along and sparked these little revivals, not even necessarily little ones, of a certain type of music. And to me, the Black Crowes were like, and this is not a great compliment to you, but it is to me, they remind me a lot of the Rolling Stones because they had that, that raw boogie bluesy thing going, but they also dabble in, kind of folky country sort of acoustic-y things, and also Motowny type stuff. I mean, they covered Hard to Handle, for heaven's sakes.
I don't know how to say it. Like, I get the raw with the Rolling Stones. There's a lot of I don't get that with the Black Crowes. I don't hear the raw. I hear polished. I hear just well crafted. I hear complex. I don't hear this simple rock stuff. So I feel like it's more deliberate. My
position probably makes more sense when I add this little tidbit about myself. I'm not that familiar with much of their later stuff. And I've heard it's incredible. And I mean, it isn't just every band that Jimmy Page decides to, let's make a record together. It's not, even though if they did Led Zeppelin songs still, he had to have thought an awful lot of that band. But I remember when they came out and the first album, the very fact that it was called Shake Your Money Maker. I mean, and it had, Jealous Again. That is that's a raw Rolling Stonesy type of song to me.
I don't hear that.
I mean,
it's rawer than later, but it's still
that's
not
what I'm
raw.
saying. It's rawer than later. And, amped up Motown, and we loved it, like Hard to Handle, and it is very Stones. Like She Talks to Angels could be any one of 100 type of Rolling Stone type stuff.
I so disagree.
Honestly, I think they ticked all the boxes of the same way, and I mean that as a compliment.
But there is no way the Rolling Stones could have covered She Talks to Angels. They could have ever done a song like that.
Well, they've done better songs, of course.
There's no way.
Yeah,
there's no way. This guy actually sings very melodically.
Yeah, but I mean, I know a lot of people. They think
the head is fit as a truck now. That's not working. Yeah, no. So it's not the same. I don't understand the comparison between the two. I don't get it. I know you mean it as a compliment.
What I forgot to mention was when they came out, that's what all the papers were saying. That's what everybody was saying. That's what all the critics were. Well, a lot of people were making that comparison. I didn't just think it of my own. It was a pretty common sentiment.
I understand that we do that, we as humans. I do that too, and I try to just try to get them on their own because they're just things. So I feel like they deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I do. I worry they may need to wait a little longer.
Yeah, well, I mean, so far, again, they could have stuff that would easily put them in the top in my mind, but so far, I mean, it depends. So far, I'd rather see them than a lot of anything that's ever been even inducted, a number of things that have been inducted. So far, they're all good with me because they're genuine rock acts and they were important and, they're excellent.
We're about to change that.
Yeah. Oh, I know it's coming. The funny thing is, I don't remember the list except for the Bad Company, which is the one I voted for.
Nice.
I have actually voted for them a couple times. You can do that every day, by the way. Not that you'll hear this before it's too late, but I know that it's going into opposites day. Allison down the rabbit hole on this bullshit next. But
you're right.
Yeah.
So next up is Chubby Checker.
Oh, well, that's not far out at all. There's much worse on the list.
Well, I'm just saying the next up is Chubby Checker. But if you think about Bad Company, the Black Crowes, Billy Idol, Chubby Checker. Chubby Checker should have, if he was going to be inducted, to me, why wasn't he inducted years and years and years and years? Now he's up against people in 2024. People who've been like active in the last 25 years. It bothers me.
Well, yeah, he
should have already been in there, to me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they had pretty much gotten all of the early.
No.
I mean, I have really very little knowledge of who's in the Hall of Fame.
They have to nominate, and no one nominated him, apparently.
Oh,
it's a travesty.
I just assume.
Or he was nominated and didn't get in.
I mean, Chuck Berry, obviously, Jerry Lee Lewis, but I just assume that, like Bo Diddley, Little Richard, I'm sure. I just assume they're all in there.
Chubby Checker, on the other hand,
I don't know if Chubby Checker himself was actually as influential, I mean, as far as his input on the music. But, I mean, there was a sensation at the time. Rock and roll was everywhere, was exploding all over the place, and that was a real dance craze. We had the twist, let's twist again, And
that was really kind of the beginning of a lot of that, though. Yeah. So, I mean, I thought that would have been covered a long time ago. I mean, he started that whole thing in a lot of ways. I mean, and it's continued. I mean, think of all the stuff that we do, the Electric Side, the Macarena, all these things, are all kind of coming from this time. And I do think, again, I mean, I hate to say it, but racial, we're definitely breaking down some racial barriers at that time. He was super pivotal. A beautiful voice, just a beautiful voice, powerhouse voice, infectious dance music. I mean, I feel like he had a lot going. I'm pissed that he's not already in there. So to me, he's an absolute should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
This is one of those things that you hear it and you go, what?
How is that possible?
We thought we did it. When did the hall open? Was it 25 years? I can't remember.
Didn't we already do that?
Yeah. I mean, wasn't it like one of the first 3 years or something like that?
I mean, I would have thought so, but apparently it didn't happen.
Yeah, and honestly, I admit to complete ignorance of who has been inducted. I know a few notables, usually the notorious ones, but I know there are a few
notorious.
Yeah, well, I mean, that are controversial, let's say. Mm-hmm. But I know some of the ones. Honestly, even some of my favorite bands, I don't know if they're in or not. So I would definitely have assumed Chubby Checker a long time ago. But he's not. Okay, well.
We need to make way for Chubby.
Yeah,
come on, let's do that. I mean, that's insane. So here's one that's lots of controversy around it. Is Joe Cocker. So, and the reason being is Joe Cocker is a cover guy. That was his thing. He did covers, right? He redid people's songs. So this is the controversy.
I never thought about it, but it's true.
So that's the controversy happening right now. Is that. Well, he didn't actually create his own music. He was a cover guy. So do we put a cover guy in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Now, here's the thing. What he did with these covers was culture altering.
I never honestly thought about it until you just brought it up, but it's true. And that's kind of unique. Every song he's known for the most part, except for some of the later You Are So Beautiful, that kind of thing, Up Where We Belong, movie stuff. But was covers. You're right. Yeah, I never thought about that. And what he did with them was totally unique and all that stuff. But and that's not true of anybody else. And we've had people who don't write, and he probably does. I wouldn't know.
He writes, but he's not a songwriter.
Yeah, I mean, we have people like Elvis, who's just a singer, but deservedly belongs in there. Joe Cocker, on the other hand, didn't have songs written for him. Well, a lot, at least early on, you know. But does he deserve it? I don't know. I like the stuff I've heard of his. I've never been that familiar. It wasn't somebody I sought out. I'm not sure of his impact. He was just a great singer from that era, but I'm not sure if it's a Hall of Fame thing, you know.
I mean, he was a great singer. That's true. I mean, again, he's an acquired taste. Not everybody liked him. But because a majority, if not all of his hits and you know, his time on the airwaves was covers, for me, as somebody who writes their own stuff, that's kind of like, I don't know. But again, I don't know how many other people fall into that category. Was Aretha in that category? Did she write her own stuff? I don't actually know. Like, that's where I'm like, I don't know, right?
Well, there are probably a lot of people who didn't. Actually, I think she did, but there are a lot of people who didn't.
Yeah.
Who are in there just for singers, you know, because they do obviously shape and, you know, make their imprint on the music. But unless you're Ozzy Osbourne, then you pretty much just make a melody and that's it. But I don't know. I don't know enough about Joe Cocker, and of course, I grew up. He's been everywhere my whole life, but I wouldn't say necessarily he belongs. But I could be wrong. I'm not passionate about that one. You know.
I'm definitely not either. I think most of the people on these lists have written most of their own songs. I mean, I think, you know, while Aretha was a great voice, I know she co-wrote some songs. It may not have been her bread and butter, but she co-wrote a lot of songs, and she was, you know, the voice of a generation. So it's kind of hard. But it's something that's causing a lot of stir right now. So again, I mean, an interesting nod to a very interesting artist. Don't know again if I agree. The next one is Mariah Carey.
Oh yeah, the queen of rock and roll herself.
But we're saying we have to put aside because they lump everybody in here, but except the country, obviously. But looking at her as an artist, impact, she writes her own stuff. Where are we on that?
Does she? I didn't know that. Was there anything that new or different? Or, I mean, she was very important. She was very huge, very successful. Just like Whitney Houston. Contemporary sort of, same kind of style, only Whitney sang better, you know.
Nope.
But what? You don't think so?
They sang different.
That's what I mean.
We can't keep doing the sing better thing.
No, well, that's what
they sing completely different. Soul, yes, but not the same.
Mariah Carey's a great singer.
She's an incredible singer. Yeah.
As far as the quality of the music, forget about it. Whitney's music was great. I don't like a lot of Mariah Carey stuff. Very little of it.
But
that's the thing. Yeah, I mean that's my only thing. The rock and roll is probably most people's objection. The fact that she's
I don't think anyone cares.
Stretch,
I mean, if Cher got in, no one gives a fuck.
Well, Cher's much more of a rock and roller than Mariah Carey.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. Well, that's going to be another show. But no, she's not. She was not. She's mostly pop, and she's mostly, she's not rock and roll. She is not rock. Kiss is more rock and roll than Cher.
Well,
and you know how I feel about.
Well, Kiss is rock and roll. You know, nobody questions that.
Kiss is shit, but they at least are more rock and roll than Cher. So no, Cher was not rock and roll. It doesn't even make sense. I don't even get that. But anyway, Mariah Carey writes her own shit. Mariah Carey she brought a different sound. She changed R&B a lot. She brought soul. She brought a different look, a different feel, a different flavor. Even going back to her first single, Vision of Love, it was very different. She really, other than, in the 70s, she brought the whistle back. So we have that whistle sound, which then started to be used by a bunch of different people. She was active for many, 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 many years on the charts, for decades on the charts. And she's still on the Christmas charts every single year. She is absolutely a quintessential artist.
Yeah, she's
an artist for the times. She was super influential. She is all the things that a lot of people after her wanted to be. She influenced a whole bunch of people. Again, other than the fact that she's not rock and roll, she should absolutely be honored as a songwriter, performer, and trailblazer.
Well, it's interesting your perspective. I never really thought of her that way. I
She
always
is.
thought of, okay, this is another one of those singers who's really good, and but the music is sometimes good, sometimes it's okay, but nothing where it just blows your hair back or anything. But I never really thought of her that fondly, so
She's
it's interesting
amazing.
to hear that. So I mean,
I don't
with
love
your
all
high
her,
with your high standards, it really does give me pause to think.
well, and I don't love all her music, but I know I saw what it did.
Yeah.
I saw who it
Oh yeah,
influenced.
I remember. I remember
saw-
Vision of Love coming out. People lost their shit.
I mean,
you know.
and but she had so many more things. I mean, she did lots of duets. She duetted with Boys to Men. She was part of so much stuff, and she just kept putting out hit after hit after hit. And it was her. She writes her own music. So that's
I had no
stuff.
idea. I had no idea.
And so even if it's off the beaten path, that's coming out of her head. And I actually watched something not too long ago where she was trying to get, I believe it's like a quartet or something to play stuff, and she was actually singing the notes for them to play, and they were like, "Oh, that's amazing!" Like she was able to because she's so knowledgeable. No, I think you should do this, and then that will sound good with this, and the
We're
harmonies
talking
and
about
the
string
everything.
players. We're talking about instrumentalists. She was saying, "Gotta do this."
Yeah,
you know?
she's amazing. As again, even if you don't like her music, you can't deny her talent. You can't vocal talent, her writing talent. You know, and she was also, you know, if you think about like Jay-Z and Beyonce, she was Beyonce before Beyonce. She was just that person. She's the original diva. I mean, you know, aside from
See-
the Queen of Soul, of course, herself.
That's exactly the kind of singer I thought she was just another like Beyonce. Okay, but yeah, good example. But that is so fascinating. I didn't know anything about that. Of course, it changes my perception of her entirely.
Yeah, she's amazing.
That she does all that. You know, I thought she was just a singer. You know?
And I get it. I mean, I think a lot of people don't know, but because
Like a Britney Spears. You know, only she doesn't even sing. You know?
right. And the thing is, you know, Mariah toured and sang, and she did the whole thing. I don't think a lot of people know she writes her own stuff. I don't think a lot of people know that she's really musically inclined. I don't think people know that how she got in the music business was grind. I mean, she's super respectable. And again, I don't love all her music, but I appreciate her talent and what she's done. And there is no voice like Mariah Carey's voice. Whitney, Mariah Carey, Celine Dion, those are voices of our time. I mean, that's what I think. The next one is Cyndi Lauper. So Cyndi Lauper, I think she has an incredible voice.
Yeah.
I think she was incredibly influential. I think she's got a huge catalog of successful music. You know, I mean, and I think a lot of people limit her to just like, 80s pop. She's way more than that. If you listen to I Drove All Night, you know, Money Changes Everything. I think that was kind of actually out there, She Bop, those kind of things too. But there are a lot of B-sides that never made it on the radio that are killer. And there's nothing like that voice. I mean, just look at her even on We Are the World. I mean, she's the only one other than Bruce Springsteen, good Lord, insert eye roll here, but who really injected a lot of soul into it, like in her own, like, crazy way. She just kind of got crazy. So I do think, you know, I think she deserves recognition for all that she's achieved. I think that, I mean, she's on her farewell tour right now, I think,
Is that right?
because I think she's 70 something, you know, which is insane to think of her, because I see her in the Girls Just Want to Have Fun video, and that's not what she looks like anymore. But I think she's brilliant. I think she also, if I recall correctly, writes her own music. I think she's amazing. I don't know where I stand on her being in here. I think her achievement should be recognized if they haven't, but I don't know. I don't know if now is the time.
Well, of course, she was like an alternate Billy Idol. I mean, you know, a video sensation, a cultural phenomenon. But, you know, she did a little bit of everything. I mean, she's been involved in, you know, in plays and everything. And the bridging the gap, bringing wrestling and rock and roll together for all those specials in the 70s, or the early 80s, it was total madness. And kooky, the whole kooky thing, which of course she tapered off over the years and everything, but in the beginning it was like, oh, I'm such a kook, you know.
I like that.
Well,
I don't know if she was a kook.
No, but the first album,
she was edgy. Edgy, and that's who she is. I didn't think she was kooky. I thought she was quirky and edgy, and I loved that.
That's exactly what I mean. In fact, I had the first album, which is She's So Unusual. I actually had that, and this is one of those rare, and I don't know why, I can't explain this. I can pretty much remember the credits of every song of every record I've ever had. I don't remember about who wrote the songs on her album, if she did. But anyway, she's a phenomenal singer. There's no questioning her voice. She's excellent. And involved in so many things, you know, got her fingers in so many pies, and was super. I mean, I was much older at the time when she came out, and I know how influential she was. So she's a serious contender, you know, so far.
Cyndi Lauper's been writing her own songs since she was 12.
Awesome. Cool.
So that's just who she is, and she's collaborated with people like Billy Joel, Mary Chapin Carpenter, Wyclef Jean, and Jeff Beck. So she's, you know... so here it says that in 2015 she was inducted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Awesome. I did not know that. How great.
So that's good. So we'll come back. And so I'm going to skip one, and there's no disrespect to anybody, but there's no fucking way David and I can even speak to this. We don't know who Manya is. It's a band that apparently, I mean, I've never heard of Manya. Do you know who Manya is?
Well, when the list came out, I listened to a few, you know, excerpts.
They're a Mexican pop band.
Yeah, of a few bands that were listed. There was another band that was very, very successful, like Manya, on this list, and I checked them out, and I thought, okay, they were probably a big deal, but I didn't know them, and it was certainly not rock and roll, which is, again, that's where I was coming from at the time.
But we can't. I mean,
well,
it's not us.
Now that you've imposed that upon us, no, we can't. But I'm saying my
nothing.
first reaction was, get the hell out of here, you know? I mean, okay.
I mean, they are pop rock.
Yeah. Not Manya. I'm talking about the other one. You know.
I don't know anything about them, so I'm skipping them since we don't
know them either.
So I can't say yes or no. They should be. I don't know them, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be in because I don't know them.
Yeah, I don't know them. Yeah.
So the next one is Joy Division, New Order, because they're, you know, kind of.
They're always together. You know. Well, I mean, I know they're linked by. It's most of the same band, except for like the singer was gone from the first one, or how did that work?
Yeah, I mean they're kind of the same band. I mean,
but what's the difference between one and the other? I mean, did they just change their name, or was there a lineup change? I thought maybe the singer like died afterwards or something. I don't know, but didn't he? Didn't the singer?
So Joy Division was from the 80s, obviously. So it was early 80s. They were experiencing the early. So Joy Division was very different. They were more kind of gothy, and then I think the New Order version was more new wave pop.
Yeah,
right.
That's what I thought. I mean, they kind of took on a different aspect too, a little more up, you know.
Yeah. So the thing is Curtis died by suicide. So Ian Curtis obviously is one of the original members, and he died by suicide in 1980. And they were going to depart for their first American tour, sadly. So after that, they decided to continue without him, which they did. But they decided not to use Joy Division as their name anymore. So, and obviously not only did they change, but then they changed because he was gone, but then I think they changed their name. So then once New Order was formed after the death of Ian Curtis, then they embarked upon a short U.S. tour as New Order in early autumn 1980. So in those shows, Sumner, Morris, and Hook all sang lead vocals on different tracks, which was different, obviously, after the death of Curtis and the name change and everything. So during this tour, they recorded 2 tracks written by Joy Division, Ceremony and In a Lonely Place, which were released as New Order's debut single in January 1981. So that's what happened. So Joy Division was around until he passed, and then we created New Order.
Incredibly enough, that means I remembered it correctly. I remember thinking somebody died somehow, and then they just went on without him. I couldn't remember if they got a new frontman, but they didn't. They kept on saying. In fact, there's another legendary band who did exactly the same thing. Think about it. The singer died, and they only they kept the same name, and they put out some records without him. If anyone in the audience is thinking, it's The Doors. The Doors did the same thing. They put out 2 albums after Jim Morrison died.
No Doubt did the same thing. So
did they really?
So yeah, a lot of people have. So I do think that Joy Division and New Order probably belong in here. I can't tell you the impact that Joy Division had on me when I was younger, listening to them, and then also New Order. Huge influence. I mean, and their music spanned different genres and touched different people, and still today is something that people listen to. Obviously, if you think about kind of the new wave thing, it's had a resurgence, as everything does at some point. I do think they deserve to be in here, and not because their singer, is no longer with us, but just because, again, of their impact, what they've done. Their music was really is and was really amazing. So I do think they belong in here. I think they probably should have a long time ago. I think, though, when you change your name and things get kind of weird like that, sometimes you get overlooked, but I'm glad somebody put them back on the list. Do they deserve it more than other people on this list? I don't know. So that's where I'm kind of stuck.
Well, and it wasn't exactly my time. Wasn't right there watching the way you were and the way I was with some of the earlier acts. But which one of those two did Love Will Tear Us Apart?
That's Joy Division.
Joy Division, yeah. Somebody has cited that. I forget. Somebody everybody loves. I think it was Keanu Reeves or something. Somebody said that was like, they said, "What's your favorite song of all time?" Well, he said, "It's that." And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I don't even know it. I don't know that I know it. But yeah, it is that important that some people consider it's like their favorite song ever, and he's not the only one.
Yeah, no, Joy Division is very emotional and very, I think some would call it dark, but I don't mind dark, but I think also it was just, I don't know, they were kind of the voice of a generation as well. But then same with New Order, just different, right? I mean, it was going to be different because times were different and music was evolving and everything. But yeah, I mean, they were very influential, again, because I think they did something people hadn't done before, at least they hadn't done in that way.
I remember being impressed with them, but for some reason, the same friend of mine who turned me on to Husker Du and the Replacements and all, was playing all those records, was also a big fan of Barry Manilow, the Partridge Family, and people like that, and all over the map music, was very much into Joy Division too. And I remember hearing some stuff, but I didn't retain it, and I didn't know. I probably know more of this stuff than I think.
Yeah, Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart, Transmission, Shadow Play, New Dawn Fade, She's Lost Control, Atmosphere. So they were active for a while. And then when we talk about New Order, which I don't know how many of those songs you can think of off the top of your head, but New Order, Blue Monday, which is probably their biggest that people think of. The Beach, Bizarre Love Triangle is another one.
I've heard that, yeah.
True Faith. I mean, there's so many. World in Motion, Confusion, Walking on Sunshine, all of this stuff. So, I mean, they picked up where they left off and kind of went in another direction as well. And I thought, just brilliant. So, I mean, again, it's hard because if they're nominated and they all get in, I'd feel happy, but that's not what happens. And then people wait another year, or maybe they're never nominated again. So that's the thing. So it sounds like you're on the fence.
Yeah, I might have to recuse myself because I don't know enough, but that's true of a couple of the acts tonight.
So this next one, Oasis.
Well, they're a phenomenon. I don't exactly know why, but I got to be mum on that one. I mean, if any, they probably do. Honestly, by not that my personal taste, but by whatever measure they use, it seems pretty likely they would.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking back at their catalog, and I'm not seeing super huge amounts of hits. I feel like there were a couple of big hits. They formed in 1991, and for whatever reason, they spoke to people. They never spoke to me, but in the terms of Britpop, they were kind of our Britpop for a very long time. And there wasn't a lot coming out, coming from Britain at that time. So they were kind of what I think we wanted. They sounded kind of fresh to people, I believe. And they were really active from 1991 to 2009. And then they started up again in 2024 because apparently they're speaking again, because we know they're very volatile.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I thought, notoriously so and irritatingly so. I thought that was off again, but who knows with them,
No, I guess it's on again. But they've been, in battle for songwriting credit. It's just been crazy. So, as I was saying about Britpop, the thing that's the most notable is I think that they were recognized as the band that spearheaded that for modern times, and that's a problem. And so they claimed a prominent place in British music, which made people look at other British acts, right? And so, I mean, there is something to be said for that. And they were, definitely a major part of UK's pop culture. So that says a lot about them as well. Yes.
I think it does. And it's like if you do something that whets the general population's appetite for a certain type of music like yours, and other bands spring up or other bands are discovered because of that, you are very significant. And like I said, they probably are. They're a phenomenon. I just never...
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't quite get it either. But
many bands and artists have cited Oasis as an inspiration, including Arctic Monkeys, Catfish and the Bottlemen, Deaf Heaven, The Killers, Always, Maroon 5, Coldplay, and Drake. So there's a lot of people who are out and who have made it big, or who are big players who were influenced by them. So you can't minimize that. Just because I don't get it doesn't mean I can't. So it sounds like they do more so than some of these other people. I would say no, but that's because of personal taste, not because since we're not going on that, I would say they do more than several so far. But I disagree with
not
that.
Several, but
more than Joe Cocker.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And probably more than Billy Idol. But, anyway, we'll see. So another one that I think neither of us are as versed on as we could be, we're going to recuse ourselves from talking about Fish. So that's Manya and Fish that we're not going to talk about because we're feeling like we don't have enough information.
And I semi-recuse myself from the Black Crowes also, but go ahead.
So the next one is Outkast. So I have a lot to say about Outkast. So if you don't know Outkast... you definitely need to go listen to them. They were definitely very, very, very different and very experimental and very forward thinking at that time. And they had tons and tons of hits. They were amazing. Their videos were amazing, super infectious, super danceable, super interesting. I would call it they're like cerebral musicians. They're in their head. They're thinking of things. They're geniuses. They have too much going on in their heads. But it's incredible what they put out. And I know that Andre continues to put stuff out, just because it's a different time. So obviously we don't have record companies that are pushing things like they used to, right? But Outkast is a hip hop duo, and it's a hip hop duo that was really smart and really different. And they did things that no one else has done in a way that no one else could ever think of doing them. So I really find them to be not only very influential, but Andre 3000 was kind of, I think, not Big Boy was also obviously critical, but Andre 3000 I always felt like really was the brains behind it. And he continues to influence people and inspire people with his ability to think completely differently and take music in a completely different direction. And I think he did bring hip hop back into the mainstream again. It wasn't something that people held away from them. It was very accessible. It was very danceable. It was very, this is for me, instead of feeling different. So I love Outkast. I think they should be in here because I do think that they were certainly not only influential, but they changed, I think, music in a lot of ways.
Wow. I complete ignorance, but it's quite a testimony. But no, I don't know.
Let's see who Outkast influenced. I think that would be interesting to see because, I think it could tell us a lot about what not that all people aren't influential. I'm sure they are. But they are influenced by George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, Kurt Cobain, and Rage Against the Machine, and also Sly Stone, right? So those are some of the influences that they had for making the music that they made. And then who was influenced by Outkast? I think that would be interesting. So you don't know any of them?
No, not really.
At all? Or just no, not really?
No, I went and another example. I went and listened for a minute when I heard they were nominated, just to see again. Is it anything rock and roll? I'd skim a couple songs. Anything rock and roll? No.
No, they're hip hop and funk and soul.
But that was actually once a good thing. Like I said, if you have enough, inspired instrumentation and music and anything, any sounds, anything, but a lot of it has just gotten so dull. But there was a lot of hella good shit back in those days. I forget what year they came out, but I plead ignorance. I probably like them, but I plead ignorance.
Yeah, they influenced Kendrick Lamar, Janelle Monáe, Childish Gambino, and ASAP Rocky or ASAP Rocky, however you call it. So those are some, but I know they did a lot more, but they are... I don't know. They're just very, very different and very powerful. And again, they brought, to me, when I think about it, they brought hip hop back into the collective conscience, where hip hop wasn't for any one group of people, it was for everybody. And I think that was always the spirit behind hip hop too, is it wasn't just for one genre, one type of person or one genre. It wanted to be, they crossed over, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, especially early on. I mean, good Lord, look at Ice-T. I mean Black Sabbath samples, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did that early on. And some of the, even like Natural Born Killer, that Dre and Snoop, that shit is scary. I mean, they had really intense, brilliant instrumentation, which I think we don't get a hell of a lot of these days. And I probably would like that. If that Outkast is like that, then fantastic. But I have to plead ignorance.
All right, yeah, I think they deserve to be in there. So we'll move on to the next one.
Well, we actually stopped there for a minute and listened to a number of,
I couldn't help myself. I had to let him hear it because it's so good.
Well, and in doing so, I totally see the George Clinton Parliament Funkadelic thing, where there's this theatrical, unhinged energy, and there's no. We've gotten down to monosyllabic droning, and this is like crazy melodies. I can see where this would have influenced like Eminem. Because it's just like, it's just, the manic vocals and
I don't know if it did influence Eminem.
I don't know, but but these guys were actually singing, and they're just like, I can totally, it's much more pop than I don't even think of it, even with that rap.
It's hip hop.
Yeah, I guess it is, but it's not. That's become almost a dirty term to me, because this is the kind of like outlandish entertainment that it was early on. When did they come out with all this? When was this?
It was a long time ago.
That's the thing about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You've got to be talking 25 years, afterwards, because that's the term.
I mean, I think they first they formed in 1992. Here it says they were widely regarded as one of the greatest and most influential hip-hop acts of all time. They achieved both critical acclaim and commercial success from mid-1990s to the early 2000s. So they popularized what's called Southern hip-hop, which is what that is, which is intricate lyricism, memorable melodies, and positive themes, while they also experimented with a diverse range of genres such as funk, psychedelia, jazz, and techno.
Yeah, and exactly. I heard all that, and it's like, the key word there, the word all of this hangs on in my mind is melodies. These were actual songs. There was singing going on. It was engaging, and this was what rap was early on. I mean, again, over 25 years, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame qualifications, and it was great back then. And I'm surprised how really, really good that was. I shouldn't be, because it was so back when stuff was good, but I haven't heard stuff like that in a long time, and I'm super impressed with them.
Yeah, it's really, really good, and they're highly influential. Well, I'm glad we were able to turn you around by just listening to a few tracks. I mean, I think that's super important, and that's why I wanted you to hear at least part of some of the tracks. And I do think, as you now, believe also that they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well,
so the next band is Soundgarden. So here's the thing. Soundgarden is one of those bands who also pushed the limits, who changed things, not just the Seattle sound, but they took it to another level. And they made listening to really hard, heavy music okay, and listening to hard, heavy music with an actual very, very good vocalist, they also made that, something that was acceptable. And I do think that was maybe something that we were missing, because while we did have...
I know you're going to say it.
We did have Lane Staley, who was a singer and who sang well. Nobody sounded like Chris Cornell. And then we have Pearl Jam, which we know Eddie Vedder, as much as I love him, not a singer, just a guy who makes singing sounds sometimes. But if we look at all of those bands of that time, there was nobody quite like this. No one could hit those notes. No one was doing what Soundgarden was doing, and no one was doing it nearly as brilliantly. And the songwriting is incredible. The lyrics are incredible. You know, I mean, it was the perfect harmony, and they were incredibly influential, not just to Seattle bands, but globally to so many different types of bands and all different genres of music. But Chris Cornell was one of those people who, you know, did his own like acoustic performances to show the softer side of things and a different vantage point. Performing songs acoustically shows a different side, and it does show what you're made of, because when you're performing acoustic, there's nowhere to hide, right? So it wasn't effects, it wasn't that they were making his voice sound bigger than it was, they weren't doubling him. That's just Chris Cornell's voice, and he's a real artist. And the way he interpreted songs, the way he delivered songs, all of that. So I do think, you know, highly influential. Obviously, you know, I have to be honest. I mean, one of my favorite bands of all time. So I think, you know, I'm definitely biased, but I'm looking here to see who they influenced. See if we can. I mean, I know they were influenced by Iggy and the Stooges, the Ramones, the Saints, Little Richard, punk rock. You know, also metal and hard rock. Those are other things that were kind of influential for them. But who did they influence? That's the interesting part. So some of the artists that credit this pioneering band with influencing them are Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, right? So those are some of the main ones that were influenced by them. But obviously they went on to influence even more people, and their impact extends beyond the grunge scene, and their music helped shape the landscape of alt rock and pave the way for new generations of musicians. Alt rock had kind of a dirty name for a long time. It didn't mean something great for a long time. Alt rock meant weird. Mm-hmm. And they made it where alt rock is something that isn't weird, something that is good, something that is palatable, something that is powerful.
And yet a little unconventional, hence the name alt, you know, I mean, exactly, yeah.
I mean, unconventional in the way that they charted their own course, that they said, we're not going to do it the way these people do, we're going to do it the way we do it. And I mean, I think of stuff like My Wave and things like that, because it's not their signatures, the time signatures in there weren't normal, the stops and starts weren't normal, the phrasing wasn't normal, but it's so good. So I feel like they're like, you know, we're going to do what we want to do, we're going to be who we are, and we are going to just kind of go balls out again and make it happen. And they did. And I do think that they changed everything. And I do think they made it okay for people to actually sing, instead of it just being, you know, grunting or making weird sounds or screaming or whatever it is. So Chris Cornell in and of himself is just a legend. Absolutely. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Soundgarden?
Well, Chris Cornell can certainly sing, and that is a little different for me. As far as do they warrant it by every measure, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, sure. My personal feelings, I love Soundgarden. I think they're great, and they're my favorite. I'm surprised if they preceded Nirvana. It couldn't have been by too much, I don't think. But you said Nirvana was influenced by them. But I mean, I always think of them as sort of contemporary, same time. But those are the only two that I really like from that whole sound, that whole scene, that whole era. I love Nirvana and I love Soundgarden, and certainly, yeah, I would. Chris Cornell, phenomenal singer, and as you said, it brings really good vocals to that heavy kind of music. But it is very unpredictable, and just look at the changes and the zigs and zags they pull on you in that one song, Outshined. I mean, they're brilliant, you know. So yeah, they totally got it.
So Soundgarden was formed in 1984. I don't know that you knew that. So that's how old that band was.
When did the first record come out, though?
So they were the first of a number of grunge bands to sign the Seattle-based record label Sub Pop, which everyone knows, through which they released 2 EPs, Screaming Life in 1987.
Wow.
And Fop in 1988. So their debut album as Soundgarden was Ultra Mega OK and was released in 1988 through another label. And it was nominated for a Grammy Award in 1990.
Wow,
so,
really?
Yeah, so I think, you know, everyone thinks of Bad Motorfinger, which was 1991. Still, again, you know, and that was Jesus Christ Pose. Oh, outshined Rusty Cage, right? So that's kind of what we're looking. Then we had Super Unknown in 1994. That's kind of what we're thinking.
Those are the two I know, yeah.
Spoon Man, Black Hole Sun. Then we kind of go on, and there are, they released Down on the Upside 1996, Pretty Noose, Burden in My Hand, Blow Up the Outside World. So there was a lot more going on, and they started a lot earlier. So let's look at when Nirvana came out, because you're thinking, Nirvana was influenced by them. I've read that before, but...
When you've been around as long as I have, 80s, 90s, decades, it's just drop in the bucket.
Nirvana was formed in 1987.
Ah.
So,
but they might have heard them anyway before that.
Yeah, the thing is I think people don't understand the importance of Soundgarden on the Seattle Sound, and the importance of Soundgarden as far as rock, heavy rock, alt rock, that kind of stuff. Just this side of metal, I think, people don't get it. And not only is the music brilliant, but again, what they've done for music has changed everything forever. And there will never, ever, in my opinion, be another singer like Chris Cornell. He is, to me, the best male vocalist of our time. I know you disagree and you think it's Robert Plant, but you're wrong.
I didn't say it was Robert Plant.
You did say it was Robert Plant. This guy, there's no one that can sing like him. He could sing anything. So I do think they should be in there. They should have been in there a long time ago. Look at who they influenced, some of these huge heavy hitters in the Seattle scene and beyond, because of their influence in alt rock. So the last band is the White Stripes.
Ah.
I love the White Stripes. I love Jack White. But the White Stripes, when I heard them, it floored me. It was super different. It was raw. It was not polished. It was harsh, and it had harsh edges, and it was kind of dirty and kind of messy and erratic and unexpected, and yes, amazing. And it's all, at the brainchild of Jack White, who has gone on to be in many bands and do many different genres of music and be super influential. I think the White Stripes ushered in another new sound, and especially doing it with two people. I can tell you, as a duo, the band performing as a duo for years, it is not easy to win over audiences with two people. They expect more people. They look at you on stage and they go, you are missing something, instead of going, wow, what you make is amazing. And the White Stripes made an amazing sound with just bass and drums.
She meant to say guitar.
Whatever they did to get past that was not easy. So there is a power in that, the fact that they changed the expectations, that they did things that you thought, well, that's going to sound like shit. It didn't sound like shit. Did it sound lo-fi? Sure. But was it still good? Sure. The whole idea was that it wasn't perfect, that it was lo-fi, which I don't normally like lo-fi. I like it to sound good. But I do think that was what they wanted. I don't like lo-fi and stuff that isn't good. This is high quality, good music shit. It's not just, some Joe Schmo going, oh, I'm lo-fi to be cool because I can't buy anything or I don't know better. This was all very calculated. The look, the sound, the delivery, the branding, the marketing, everything was fucking brilliant, and it changed things. And I do think they belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I definitely would say Jack White does, for sure.
Yeah, I think this is one of those, because as you said, he's done so many things, and I'm not even going to mention...
Rock Tours, there's so much.
I'm not even going to mention that two of these Seattle acts, or two of the acts you've named have done bomb themes. I won't even mention that. But he has done so many things, and the aesthetic, when they came out, the look was so grabby and jarring. And I like the fact that you are forced to rate them, because it isn't super polished or anything like that, and it is only two musicians, and they force you to look at, do you like the song or don't you like the song? They're like the ultimate indie band in a way, because there's a lot of DIYers in the indie world who really don't know how to produce very well, but if you hear the song and you go, oh, I like that, I wish it sounded a little better, but it doesn't matter, I like the song. And they kind of like that. But
everything was deliberate. There wasn't like we can't do this. Jack White's brilliant. It was deliberate.
Well,
it wasn't a mistake.
And interesting about them was with Ascent. Okay, there are only 2 of them up there, but you have more sounds because of it's all live and everything looping. But with White Stripes, they would just actually play just 2 of them, and we a couple of bands who do just that very thing, and they sound surprisingly good too.
Well, but most of those play with the track. They play with the backing track.
Oh, I didn't think
The bands that-
Tragic Radicals did that.
No, but they don't have any vocals. It's just their
that's a good
guitar
point.
and drums.
That's a good point.
There's no
too.
vocal in that. But,
Yeah.
but Bat Farm plays to a track, which is fucking brilliant.
Oh, that's
and Cliff and Ivy, which is another duo that I know. They're an Alaskan duo. They play with the track. You know, we got to fill in the sound somehow.
Completely forgot about the vocal thing. Yeah, it's true, and they make that work pretty well. But yeah, and of course, definitely better drummer than Meg. I never noticed how Meg, but they pulled off a hell of a lot with just those 2 of them. I remember the first time I listened to it, I thought, wow. I mean, I'm really impressed. And so Jack White personally and the White Stripes too, I would have to say yeah. Not that he's up for it. I'm just saying it's one of those things, like Paul Rogers.
So here's the interesting thing about the White Stripe sound that you can hear and is part of it. And again, everything is intentional. Jack White is a very intentional artist. He didn't get up there and have it lo-fi and not do it on purpose. He didn't have Meg on drums on accident. Everything was purposeful. But
including the silly marketing about whether they're brother and sister or married.
They just let that go.
Yeah,
they just didn't correct
all
anyone.
of that. Very clever. Yeah.
So some of the things that influenced them, though, traditional country music like Hank Williams, Loretta Lynn, rockabilly like Flat Duo Jets, Wanda Jackson, Gene Vincent, and surf rock of Dick Dale.
Yeah.
And folk music like Lead Belly and Bob Dylan have also influenced the band's sound. Meg has said one of her all-time favorite musicians is Bob Dylan. Jack has performed live with him and has claimed, I've got 3 fathers, my biological dad, God, and Bob Dylan.
Oh, nice.
So I do think, that they were one of those bands. For whatever reason, at that time, they changed everything. And you still listen to them now and you go, wow, they have something. It sounds like it could be music of now. It sounds like it could be music that was made in the 90s, in the 80s, and it was the 2000s. So again, I do think the White Stripes belong in there, and or again, at the very least, Jack White belongs in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So far, it looks like, let's go back and we're going to do a final tally of what we think should be in. So Bad Company, I say yes.
Yes.
Black Crowes, I say yes. Mariah Carey.
I'm sorry, no.
I'm a
no,
yes.
no.
It doesn't make no sense, especially after what I told you.
Yeah.
Chubby Checker, yes.
Yep.
Joe Cocker, no for me.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yes or no? I can't tell what you're saying.
No.
Billy Idol, no for me.
Yeah, for me.
Cyndi Lauper, no for me.
Yeah, probably for me too. Yeah.
Manya, I have no idea.
No idea, yeah.
Joy Division, New Order, yes.
Yeah.
Oasis, yes, even though I don't like them.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Outcast, yes.
Yes.
Fish, I'm abstaining.
Abstain, yeah. Totally recused.
Soundgarden, yes, and the White Stripes, yes. Now let's just pick
Yes.
5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fuck.
Now let's just pick 5. So Bad Company,
Yeah,
yes
of course,
or no?
of course, yeah.
Black Crowes,
Actually, better to see them all at once because I say yes now and then I got to back up and forget how many. Okay, okay.
what did you just say? You said you got to do backup and what?
No, I said it'd be easier to see the list all at once.
No, we're going to go through. We're going to pick. You're going to
Okay.
pick 5 of the list. That's what
Okay.
we're doing. So,
All right.
Bad Company, yes or no?
Yes.
Black Crowes,
Yes.
Mariah Carey,
No.
Chubby Checker,
Yes. That's 3 so far, yeah. For me. No.
yes. Joe Cocker,
No.
Billy Idol,
Yes.
Cyndi Lauper,
I guess since I only got one left, I'm going to have to say no.
Joy Division, New Order,
Not really.
Oasis,
No.
Outcast,
No, I guess not.
Soundgarden,
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with them. I
the
guess.
White Stripes.
I'll go with Soundgarden, I guess.
So you'd rather have Billy Idol than the White Stripes?
Yeah, there's the familiarity question and everything, but
No, we're talking about no. That's not what people are. People aren't going. Oh, familiarity. That's not what they're voting
there's a
on.
little too much pressure here. Yeah, it's a hard call. It's a hard call.
It's not. For me, it's Bad Company. It's definitely Chubby Checker. It's gonna be Joy Division and New Order, Outcast, Soundgarden, and White Stripes. That's what it's going to be for me if I have to pick 5.
I thought that sounded like 6.
If was it okay?
Yeah.
Bad Company, Chubby Checker, Joy Division, Soundgarden, White Stripes.
That was it? Oh, you know what it was? It's you said Joy Division New Order, as you should have, because it's one. Yeah, that's what threw me. Okay.
So I think that, so if we can pick 7, because sometimes it's 7, then I'm going to add Outkast and Mariah Carey.
I'm impressed with what I now have heard of Outkast, but I'm probably going to go with Cyndi Lauper and White Stripes.
People currently in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this may not be an exhaustive list. Hopefully I don't butcher his name. Ahmet
Erdogan, I believe.
Erdogan,
Yeah.
Carole King, Seymour Stein, John Landau, Aretha Franklin, Ruth Brown, Chuck Berry, Laverne Baker, Phil Spector, Pat Benatar, Alan Freed, Kate Bush, Alan Toussaint. I don't know how to say it. Toussaint?
Yeah.
Toussaint?
Toussaint, yeah. Toussaint.
Wanda Jackson, Louis Armstrong, Dinah Washington, B.B. King, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Bobby Bland, Dion DiMucci, Hank Ballard, Howlin' Wolf, Elmore James, Woody Guthrie, Hank Williams, Jimmy Rogers, David Bowie, Bill Haley, Jeff Beck, Ringo Starr, Buddy Guy, Jackson Brown, Isaac Hayes, Leon Russell, Freddie King, Barry Gordy, Herb Alpert, Little Walter, Chet Atkins, Pete Seeger, Willie Dixon, Leonard Chess, David Bartholomew, Dick Clark, Robert Johnson, Nile Rodgers, George Martin, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, and I know there have got to be more, but I'm going to stop reading. There are tons and tons and tons and tons of people in because it's been going on for a long time.
And you probably recognize almost all of those names, even though many of them, you will note, are not actual musicians, but they're very important producers, songwriters, record execs, everything. And that's fine, of course.
There are 365-ish people. So, I mean, you've got like Michael Jackson, Public Enemy, Randy Newman, Quincy Jones, Albert King, Hart is in there, Lou Adler. You know, there's so many. Red Hot Chili Peppers, The Miracles, The Midnighters, Freddie King. I mean, Guns N' Roses. You know, there are so many different people. There are hundreds. But just, you know, naming some, Gene Vincent, Billy Joel, George Martin, Curtis Mayfield, Paul McCartney, Del Shannon, Dusty Springfield, Bruce Springsteen, the Staple Singers, not sisters, good Lord, Eric Clapton, Nat King Cole, Clive Davis, Earth, Wind and Fire, Billie Holiday, James Jamerson, Love in Spoonfuls. Wow, there's so many. Bonnie Raitt, James Taylor, Aerosmith. I mean, I could go on forever. So it's a very esteemed list of people. And I obviously, you know, would like you to go take a look at this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame list. And you're going to see, you know, how broad it is because this is the entity. It's like the Grammy Awards, even though they have different genres. It's still the Grammy Awards. There's not like, oh, here's the Country Grammy Awards. But they do have those. But this one, we chunk everybody into one. Even though I disagree, rock and roll is different, but they do that and they chunk them all in. So we have to list them. So go take a look at the list. It's so prestigious. There's so many amazing artists. And like you said, you know, engineers, audio people.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Spector,
producers,
Dick Clark. I mean, you know, these people, they belong there. You know, of course
absolutely.
they do. Yeah.
Just because they're not musicians.
Alan Freed, come on, you know.
Come on, absolutely. So anyway, I know that was a little longer, but I think we had some good discussion and it was fun. Thank you for going along on this little ride with me. I know we've done this a few times, several years in a row. We always talk about this and it pisses us off to no end.
But honestly, I've never looked at the whole list because you said there are hundreds.
Hundreds.
Just as you were reading them, whenever you see the list, you go, oh, I didn't know that. There are people in there that you had no idea, that you don't remember because you don't really pay attention to it. So I go, Aerosmith, yeah, I'm glad they're in there. I mean, I do remember Hart and everything and a few of those being inducted, but some of them took me by surprise.
Tina Turner, Wilson Pickett, Jimmy Reed. Yeah. I mean, just Booker T. Washington, Johnny Cash, so many. They
were rocking. It actually sounds like you're saying R-O-C-K in the USA.
Jimi Hendrix Experience.
They were rocking. Sorry.
Oh, God. The Yardbirds. Right, so many. Cream, obviously, you know,
and Yardbirds,
Creedence,
obviously.
The Doors.
Oh, certainly. So
you know, it just keeps going on and on. Etta James, right? So go take a look at it, and then judge for yourself who you really believe should be in there. And then, of course, watch the actual induction and then see if your people are in there. And if not, maybe they'll be nominated in the future, or maybe they won't. So it's really, really tough. I don't know why we can't just put droves of them in, why it has to be 5 to 7, but drove them on in.
I guess then everybody would be in, and it wouldn't be special anymore. I don't know.
I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much for going on this little journey with me. So now that we're done and we've kind of got through all that stuff, I guess that only leaves for you to say,
let's fly this coop.
This has been Winging It, a presentation of Birds of a Feather on What the Flock Radio.